All right, what is going on, guys? It's Adam, aka Marf, and we are back. We're going to talk about a ton of stuff that has just gone down, including events all over the world and an exercise that happened way before. What the government is preparing for, again, actually multiple things that they are preparing for. We'll be right back with all of that and more right after this. Nothing in the show should be considered legal, medical, or financial advice. The views of the callers can differ considerably and do not necessarily reflect my opinion, Dex's opinion, or anyone else who works with the show. You should always do your own research and consult with professionals. The internet is full of fake news, so please take everything with a grain of salt. If you have not already, it helps us out if you end up going through any of our affiliates, and it helps you out if you end up protecting yourself against cybercrime. NordVPN is one of the best and one of the easiest to use. If you do not have a virtual private network, it protects your IP address, which is your online identity, which actually connects to your real address and everything else. It also connects to you. If you know anything about how they are data logging and basically getting your profiles down, you can prevent that by having a VPN. Nord is, again, one of the easiest. Download it. It's like an on switch and off switch. All you have to do. Go to marfugelnews.com/VPN. Not only will you get a giant discount on this, but you will also be helping us. I appreciate your support, and I appreciate everyone that goes through any of our affiliates. Can't say thank you enough. All right. Let's get this party back started. What is going on, guys? My name is Adam, aka Marf, and this is Marfugel News. Tonight, we have a ton to go over. So, just to remind anyone new here, this is a live show and anything can happen. Just to go over a quick thing that we, of course, wanted to let you guys know, 4.3 earthquake hit. One thing to know about this is a lot of our group that follows earthquakes says that the Los Angeles area should be aware of their surroundings at all times. So before we get started, I want to remind everyone about the marfugelnews.com and how you can follow along with today's show. Go over to marfugelnews.com and you can sign up for our notifications if you're not getting them from the platforms. And then also, today's show will have every single article, tweet, video, picture, document that we're going to show you here is on a bibliography on our website. That way you know exactly where this information is coming from. All you have to do is go to, of course, this thumbnail, all of the above, and then, of course, click on that. You will see that it brings you to a full bibliography of all of our sources. That way, exactly where this stuff is coming from, you can go and see for yourself. Now, one thing to note is once you hit a yellow bar, there is a ton of stuff that is just way too far off the spectrum to cover right now. Again, there is a huge debate about certain events going on. We're not going to be covering that on our show. We'll be covering that over on our website, so make sure to go over there. We may be doing some sort of article about that. There's a lot of crazy things going on right now. But again, remember to stay focused on what really is changing around us. Now, also down there is all of the extras, anything extra as far as pictures, tweets that we reference, that will all be down there. Now, let's bring in my co/internet brother, Dex James. What is going on, and how are you doing today?
Well, hello, Adam, and hello, Fugel fam. I am doing just fine.
So to get off, first, let's talk about Los Angeles, hit by a magnitude 4.3 earthquake near Trona with significant tremors felt downtown. One thing that a lot of the folks in our group and a lot of people follow Dutch Sense and others say is that this is definitely a smaller earthquake for Los Angeles. Of course, they've had much bigger, but right now there's a lot of kind of the key factors that go into a high risk for a bigger earthquake to happen. We, of course, have many earthquakes that happen so very, every so often, and a lot of those have lined up as far as almost all of these are like overdue, locked and loaded, ready to go. So again, if you're in Los Angeles or anywhere around that, you should be prepared for earthquakes already because you live in earthquake country. I mean, you guys have a ton of these. So just remember when you have something like this could be a precursor to something bigger, or again, usually this is something after a big one, right? So just remember to know where your surroundings are, how to get out of buildings if you have to, and things like that. The West Coast should be on alert just the entire time period because of the impending Cascadia subduction zone. But again, you also have San Andreas, and you have certain smaller, very, very powerful, basically ticking time boom booms in California. So just be aware. And then natural gas surges above $9, hits the highest since 2008 as inventories stay low. Natural gas surged above $9 per million British thermal units, or MMBTU, on Wednesday, hitting the highest level in more than a decade as dwindling inventories push prices higher. U.S. Prices surged more than 6% at one point, at a high of 9.399 per MMBTU, the highest since August of 2008. I believe a lot of people are surprised that there actually was this kind of high in 2008, but if you remember back then, there was a ton of stuff going on. It says that is the latest leg higher as in what's been blistering rally for natural gas as Vlad's conflict on UKR sends energy markets reeling. So that is another spike. We have covered every single kind of up the ante moment in gas, electricity, in food, in poultry, in beef, in pretty much everything. Dex, you want to go over what the?
Well, yeah, Adam, we called this, like, in the sense we've been talking about how we know this is going to go up, and we've told people, like, and I even saw it on my bill before this article came out. I noticed that when I had to renew my bill, it went up double. That literally doubled what the commitment of the therm price is for natural gas. So this is a big deal, and we've said it before. This is just reiterating what we've been saying for probably about a month now, at least heavily for the last month. Like, everybody get ready for this, even though you're going into the summertime and most people don't think about natural gas. You know, it is something that's used to generate power at the power plants. Like, our local coal plant was converted to natural gas, and that's happening all over. So, you know, these are going to affect electric bills. It's going to affect a lot of things.
And like Dex said, he has a situation where he pays a contracted amount and it won't go any higher than that. It won't go any lower. It's doubled. Other places have said that they have nearly tripled. So obviously it's not getting any better financially. Our system is crumbling. And then, of course, meet LIQ, or ILIC, a talking robot roommate helping older New Yorkers fight social isolation. Hundreds of older adults in New York will be getting a roommate under the new program to combat the social isolation that many of them experience. And the seniors won't have to worry about the roommate leaving dirty dishes in the sink or using all the toilet paper. That's because the roommate is a talking robot called LEQ. And Dex, am I saying that right? Is it LEQ? I don't know.
I think it's LEQ. I think you're saying it right. I haven't heard otherwise.
LEQ. It says the New York State Office for the Aging. They have a New York State Office for the Aging. There's got to be a joke there somewhere. We'll be providing more than 800 residents with LEQ from Intuition Robots. So 800 people are going to be getting these, or older folks that live by themselves instead of a service animal or a cat. They're giving them a robot. This is where we are headed, and we have talked about this for years. Many people have seen the patterns. You guys have all seen this. This is not a good thing for those who fear the robotic age that is coming. Again, robots, AI, is something that so many people have such a hard grasp of grabbing that it is a scary thing, and it is not a good thing for human beings. And that's, again, my opinion. What's yours? Once you understand every single thing that they are working on for AI and robotics, you'll understand why Elon Musk says in the future you'll be happy and you'll really want to get a guaranteed income or a guaranteed what has he called it? Guaranteed. Was it a guaranteed income, a stipend or something? He was basically talking about how, everybody in the future will have kind of a welfare check. He's not joking. They are replacing everything from drivers to pilots, normal jobs, to construction. Construction is the big one that people think, it will be safe forever because there will always be building. People will be dumping garbage. That's another safe one, right? There's always garbage. But those are all being replaced. You've got artists and entertainers. That is being replaced by AI, or they're trying. So just keep that in mind. We warned you. And then robotic crab tinier than a flea becomes the smallest ever remote-controlled robot. Again, this stuff is just absolutely nuts. That is a quarter, and that is the size of the remote-controlled robot. It looks like a spider more than a crab, but apparently it walks more like a crab. It says a miniature robotic crab tinier than a flea has become the smallest ever remote-controlled robot. Measuring just 0.5 millimeter wide, it can walk, bend, twist, turn, and even jump. The remarkable record-breaking micro machine was developed by engineers at Northwestern University and comes in the form of tiny peaky toe crab. The same team also developed millimeter-sized robots resembling inchworms, crickets, and beetles. What do you think about these? Does this freak you out? Soon, this will probably have a good purpose as far as they'll have robots that will be able to go inside and grab things out of your stomach or out of, say children that swallow batteries. We've already talked about the ooze that literally is like a living thing almost, and it will go down your throat, roll around, and pick up anything magnetic. So it would get robotic. It's a robotic thing of some sort, and it goes around the lining of your stomach, picks up anything, and then comes back out. And I believe it's controllable. But again, things like this in the future are going to be normal. I mean, we are in the future. Before we move on, and because the show is run by Energy, I want to remind you guys right now, if you go to marfugelnews.com/energy, you, of course, have the ability to get on the list to get an Energy solar generator. The reason why you would want to go sooner than later is because these are extremely coveted, and again, supply is extremely hard to get right now because of not only the demand, but the different parts that are made in certain countries around the world are getting harder and harder to attain. As far as solar generators, they contain electronics that literally a big part of them are only made in 1 or 2 places in the world. So these are getting harder and harder to get. The reason why you would want a solar generator rather than a gas. Again, a smart plan would be probably have both if you have the ability. But if you were to pick one, gas is going to go up and up and up, and it's going to get harder to attain. If an SHTF situation happened, you would not be able to get it at all, or at least most people believe so. And then, of course, this does not make any sound, and it can be put in your house. As far as a gas generator, when you start up a gas generator, people from 3 blocks over can hear you have one. When people get desperate and things go down, you're not going to want that. You're going to want a silent and stealthy mode to power whatever you still have left. Again, marfugelnews.com/energy with an INERGY. That's marfugelnews.com/energy. Every purchase helps fund our show, and it helps us personally. So thank you, everybody that goes through that. They end up giving us a commission of your purchase. Again, it helps us run the show. So thank you very much. We also believe it will save lives or make your lives a whole lot more convenient. And it doesn't have to be the end of the world. It could be just a week-long power outage or rolling blackouts or a big storm. These things are extremely, extremely, extremely useful. Again, they're extendable too, so you can actually connect up to 96 batteries onto one base unit. So you don't have to just throw it out when the one battery goes bad after years and years. You can actually just keep going and keep adding. All right, and then, of course, let's get into it, and we're going to go over to the chat here in a second. I wanted to put this, in fact, we'll mention this a little bit later as well, but Virginia has its first presumed business case, and again, the monkeys are going nuts. It says Virginia now has its first presumed case of the POX. It says the State Departments of Health said today. This is a very rare disease in the United States. The patient is currently isolating and does not pose a risk to the public. So there's been a lot of things about this. Just so you know, other countries in the world have already actually mandated certain things. In fact, some of them actually created something to lock down certain people that get this, or separate or isolate them. That is something that scares a lot of people because obviously what we have gone through for the last 2 years. Things are happening right now at breakneck speeds all over the world. With this is something that a lot of people fear is going to turn into the next you-know-what. What do you think about it? Let me know in the comments down below. I'd love to hear your opinion. Plus, Mary XXO, and thank you for the folks that were praying for my wife. I really appreciate that. Vault 11, Cats Meow, Plant a Victory Garden. Vicky K. St. Louis, thank you. Ryan, 1141, thank you. I appreciate you. Chewy Weather, and everybody else that is over on DLive. I thank everybody for popping in and making it to almost every show. Let's see here. We have Bible Talk 777. Thank you for being one of the last ones out. Let's see here. Let's see. And just to make sure we get the chat open here. Thank you, everybody that has piled in. Belinda Golks. Let's see. Rebecca Snavely, 2003, U.S. of 70-some cases. No big deal. We're going to talk about that as well. There was actually a drill that was done. And, again, that is something that you kind of wonder why they actually did, why they have done all of the different drills and why they just spent a ton of money on the, I guess, the isolation shots for it. 12 Monkeys. Yes, I am Aronson. Jason78 is modding. Thank you for being here. I appreciate you. Nadine Susie, Ronald Sipple, and Dex. Kishara. Okay, we do. Okay, for a second I wasn't seeing DLive there. Roger Starchild, Robotics is Demonology. There's a clip from 1965 that is quite freaky. I don't know. Who watched the last Jason A video? If you did see that, it said America's Warning or something like that. Make sure to go check that out. Panhandle Prepper, we've got Bones, Wharton Fissel, thank you. And then Meat Puppet 007, Bible Talk 777, and then we've got Carol McLean, Irish Rebel. Thank you so much for your support. And it looks like we have Steve McQueen. What is going on? How are you doing? And Bill Bigsby. Thank you so much for popping in, and thank you for subscribing. So, by the way, Dex, we have the other thing later, the documents. That is later on in the show, I believe. Do you think I guess we'll wait on that, especially for the later stories. But again,
well, we have two different ones, right? You've got the one that's related to the pox, and you got another one that's related to the government, right?
Yes. So one is, yeah. So I just did the one with Virginia. Do you want to talk about the metaverse being our tech specialist, and then I'll load up the other one here for the last story here?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is kind of a crazy story coming out of the UAE, where the minister is making a statement that's saying, hey, we need someone like the UN to step in and create laws for the metaverse. In other words, when people commit crimes, or in this particular case, commit the M word there, they want the UN to actually rule this, at least from a legal standpoint. And when you think about that, that's kind of crazy in some regards, because the metaverse is really just the internet. It's really just a place where you go. But it's coming hot off the heels of a few different stories related to people having, encounters that are very negative towards them in the metaverse, where, someone's being accosted or something like that, but in a different way, but virtually, not in reality, but it's just happening in this VR style world. So there's lots of these new things that are happening, and of course they're gonna dominate the news and the stories about the metaverse, because everybody sort of thinks of it as, if you're not in the gaming side of it and you're just looking at it in the the virtual reality part of this metaverse, then they're looking for all the gotchas and just bringing it to the surface, and that's what they're doing. And so I think we're seeing the fallout of that is, like, all of a sudden now they're trying to drag in these giant organizations, these global organizations, and saying that they should now run it. And so this was coming from the WEF in Davos, Switzerland, where it came up. So
now, and that's the very important part about this. And think about where Neuralink is possibly going. We're talking about putting an actual chip inside of our brain that will connect to the internet. What if they are, foreseeing down the line that it's kind of a Matrix situation where you take somebody out in the actual metaverse, it would take you out in real life, or a secret ability to be able to do that with a chip. if you did something wrong, or say if you signed up when you got it, like, hey, as long as you're a good citizen, this is fine. But if you do something bad, we can actually use this for capital punishment or something like that. Think about that. Sounds crazy now, but think about in the future when this will be kind of a requirement for people to live, would be having this chip. That would be if that happens, right, Dex?
Yeah, right. And so going back to the gaming portion of it, like when you, and I'm not a big gamer, it's been years since I played, but like just thinking of things like, what is it, Call of Duty or any of those war conflict style games, you're shooting other people, right? You're playing, engaging in this game. So how does that differ from what you would do in this meta world, right? I don't know, if the rules allow you to do that to someone or not, but it's just kind of a weird position to start thinking about creating laws and enforcement around, right?
Yep, and especially where it is coming from, that's the freakiest part here. It's again at the W and the E and the F. That is, of course, a lot of people that are in the know are paying attention to what is happening at that event or at those events that they do. Now, again, this is pretty crazy stuff. And, well, basically, people threatening people online is going to become a lot more serious when you start getting into the virtual world and VR and everything else. And then we have Vlad accused of kidnapping own citizens to fight a conflict in UKR. Of course, this, I bet you, is going to come from one place. It says citizens of the Vladian Republic of Chechnya are reporting that they are being taken against their will and forced to fight as, quote, volunteers in Vlad's conflict against UKR, according to several human rights organizations. It says hundreds of Chechen people are being rounded for mass abductions. One-Adada, a human rights group that advocates against corruption in Chechnya and Russian propaganda. It says the taken are required to sign a paper saying that they are volunteers to be sent to UKR. Otherwise, they are threatened with fabrication of criminal cases. That is what is at least being said by this group. This group, I have not looked into the different connections that it actually has. So I will be doing some more digging as far as what this group is all about. Dex, do you have a comment on this?
Well, it's not just the group, but it's being reported by mainstream news. So while the group is the one saying it, it's also being regurgitated. And in this case, it's Yahoo, but they're just as big as any of the other major outlets out there that continue to publish this information. So we have to, we always take everything with a grain of salt. And I think this soundbite is very much like in that realm of, wow, that's kind of outlandish. Is that really happening? When you first hear it. So we sort of have to question everything. We always should. So that's what I think is important here. But at the same time, if this is really going on, it's kind of a scary situation for those people. And it's also a scary situation to think that a country needs to be doing that, to be in that kind of position. So, which also leads, a little bit of that questionability to the statement too, right?
And I've also heard cannon fodder being used multiple times as far as like everything around this. It says everyone who goes to UKR in this way will be used on the front line like cannon fodder. So I've actually heard that on several other kind of pieces about different things. But another thing to remember is, you should have your own kind of opinion about what's actually going on. One side of the parties are not really heard. At least 95% of people are not going around or out of their way to go get, news or stories from outside of what's readily available. So people aren't, going on a VPN and going to the stuff that's now blocked or changed. I think that there should always be two sides to a story so we can all be the judge for ourselves. There's a reason why in a court of law, you have a plaintiff and a defendant. And the jury listens to both. You plead your case, you plead your case. When it's only one side pleading their case, there's room for a lot of errors. There's room for a lot of, even if both are just completely lying, that's, kind of up for the jury to decide, right? But again, now I don't like to use this as an example, but a lot of people, everybody's distracted with the Johnny Depp and Amber Heard case. Going into that thing, Johnny Depp looked like he was the beater in that case. Now most people have all kind of agreed, and now everybody's up in arms saying that it's the opposite way around after listening to all of the court cases. So whatever you think about that, I don't want to debate about that, but again, it was both of them pleading their sides that ended up turning everybody to do and say that. So with everything that's going on, I just don't think, and I really think that everybody's making Vlad and his country and his military look so stupid when this is a major power with nuclear weapons and science that is on par with ours as far as military equipment. So how the heck are they doing so badly unless it's a direct conflict? I mean, you could maybe expect this to happen if they were going up against us directly, but how they've kind of made people think like, oh yeah, that totally makes sense, is that everybody is sending their grade A equipment. But if you actually look at what's being sent, it's like our older equipment that's, completely outdated. Now, I'm sure they're also sending new gear as well. There was a few stories of a few things as far as air defense systems and things like that, but it's not, it wouldn't do what it's doing right now. So there's something is up. Something is not being told to us. That is my opinion. What is yours? Let me know in the comments down below. UKR conflict. Xi on alert as sugar shortage signals new front in global food crisis. Every single day, we have a new story on this. By the way, Paul Theriot, thank you so much for your support. Thank you for popping in. You can always write a message there. Meeple007 says, shout out to the mods, Dex and Marv. Thank you. And then Bible Talk 777, the USA is infected with donkey POX. Yes. In fact, that's funny. By the way, you guys probably didn't know if you didn't follow, but my mother-in-law came down with this. She ended up she went to her doctor, and the doctor said, oh, that stuff doesn't work. Immediately went, and this is somebody who's been on the fence, actually did all three of the things, and actually looked into it and then read all of the data and read all of the stories and things, and she kept going back and forth on if she should do all of those things, and then she did it, and then this time her doctor said, no, that stuff doesn't work. That stuff that everybody's taken and feeling better. She ended up, a friend from her work gave her the number for a place. She was able to get it within 24 hours to a pharmacy from a legit doctor, and she's feeling good in less than 24 hours, like from being, just horribly, horribly ill. So that's just one more case. And I believe after that happened, I think that her mind is kind of just spinning right now because of what she's heard about it, what she was told about it, and even her longtime doctor saying, oh, that's nothing. That stuff doesn't work. Irish Rebel, missed you guys the last few days. Thank you. Hey, I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Carol McLean, much love to everyone. And then Diane Moses and Neil Nelson, thank you guys for both popping in and saying hello. Joe Mayer, thank you for subscribing. Kathy Looper, LMFT, thank you for subscribing as well. I'm wondering if you actually do looping or if that's just your name. All right, and then as far as the sugar ordeal, it's every single day we have seen a new story about this, and I don't think most people are realizing how bad this is actually going to get. It says anxiety about a looming global food crisis has ratcheted up a notch as spillovers from the UKR conflict spread from grain to sugar, while export restrictions imposed by many countries are expected to keep driving up prices. Though the world's least developed countries are likely to be hit hardest by the higher sugar prices, Xi's sugar output is tipped to be the lower than expected this year, meaning more imports will be needed to meet domestic demand. What is so crazy to me is we are so dependent on countries that we essentially consider a complete and utter enemy. We had this going the whole time. We had countries that were stealing our military designs, hacking and doing the most punishable offenses to us, and then for years and years and decades depended on them 100% for things like antibiotics and other things. I mean, like, how stupid is the people in charge that they did that. I don't understand it. I still don't understand it. To anybody that just is discovering how much is made in countries like Xi's country, it's pretty shocking. And it's not just antibiotics. It's not just batteries and different things, minerals and resources. It's a ton of things. It's just absolutely insane. And then before we talk about Western Power's sound alarm on Xi's plan for the South Pacific, which we've been calling this the whole time, I do want to remind you, though, if you do not have anything as far as long-term survival, make sure to go over to marfugelnews.com/prep. You can get all of the essentials, including as far as 72-hour kits, 1-month kits, 3-month kits. They still have $150 off on the 3-month kit. That's at marfugelnews.com/prep. Again, that's marfugelnews.com/prep. You can also get the Alexa Pure Pro as far as a huge gravity-fed water filtration system if you don't trust what's in your H2O. They also have iodine tablets. They have all sorts of great stuff, so make sure to go over and check it out. They have every gadget that you can imagine, and again, it can be delivered right to your door. So go check it out, marfugelnews.com/prep. You will get a discount on certain things, again, and you'll be helping our channel at the same time. I believe these will save lives. There's no way around it. Yeah, that survival food will come in handy for someone out there. So I really hope that people end up getting prepped before they need it instead of after. After, you won't be able to. All right, and then Western powers sound the alarm on Xi and his plan for the South Pacific. It said that Western Power sounded the alarm Thursday over leaked plans to dramatically expand Xi's security and economic reach in the South Pacific in what one regional leader called a thinly veiled effort to lock island states into, quote, Beijing's orbit. If approved by Pacific Island nations, the wide-ranging draft agreement and the 5-year plan, both obtained by the AFP, would give Xi a larger security footprint in a region seen as crucial to the interests of the United States and its allies. In a sign of the region's growing importance to Beijing, Foreign Minister Wang Yi landed in the Solomon Islands Thursday at the start of a high-level 8-nation Pacific tour to present a potentially lucrative offer. It says the package would offer 10 small island states millions of dollars in Xi assistance, and the prospect of a Pacific Islands free trade agreement, and access to Xi's vast market of 1.4 billion people. It would also give Xi the chance to train local police, become involved in local cybersecurity, expand political ties, conduct sensitive marine mapping, and gain greater access to natural resources. It says the comprehensive development vision is believed up for the approval when Wang meets regional foreign ministers on Monday in Fiji. It says, quote, this is Xi seeking to increase its influence in the region of the world where Australia has been the security partner of the choice since second conflict WW2, Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese said on Thursday. It says Australia, quote, needs to respond, he said, outlining plans for a step up in Pacific engagement with about $500 million in additional aid for defense training, maritime security, and infrastructure to combat the effects of change of the planet and their weather. So, Dex, we have talked about how obviously there was talk about these islands much before, and we've talked about how they would like to get in there. They're possibly going to be buying some politicians out or buying the leaders out, and this would go just completely smoothly, I believe, if it wasn't for their already built partnerships with places like Australia. Do you agree?
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, these deals are probably very sweet deals to the leaderships of these countries and probably have some benefit to their constituents. But it's not necessarily something that, you know, somebody coming from a democratic, free environment would look at and say, oh yeah, that's something we'd want, right? But I have a sneaking suspicion that in these countries they're going after, these islands they're going after, they can get away with this, and they can easily go in and flash a bunch of money and flash a bunch of technology and flash a bunch of opportunity and free trade and all of these great things that are just going to, you know, basically feel like economic booms for them. So, you know, it's a lush opportunity, and I imagine, and it's got huge potential for Xi. Right. So, you know, this does need to be dealt with in some some way, shape, or form. Otherwise, it doesn't. It seems to me like he's going to be pretty easy to pick this up, unless we swoop in with some sort of sweet deal.
It's kind of like the deal with the devil kind of thing. Like, oh, just sign here. Yeah. Oh, you're going to get tons of money. You'll be rich. You just require your soul in return, which essentially all these places would be giving up, right? I mean, they're opening the door for surveillance and all of their crazy things that they do in their country, and they would owe Xi one, right? They would owe them.
Exactly. And how many times have we seen this happen with other ports, other countries in their ports, other poor countries? This is, lather, rinse, repeat. He's done this numerous times throughout in South America, in Africa, and other locations, strategic key locations where he either wants to have rights for the Navy to come in, or he actually outright wants to have a base there. He comes in, swoops in with a great deal. All of a sudden it doesn't work out after they've signed the paperwork, and the numbers don't fall in their favor, and then boom, he takes over, and now he's got a port, or he's got access to XYZ, whatever it is he needs.
Well, what's funny is and we say he, and we're not doing that to substitute. He has been the leader during all of these deals. Xi has actually, he spearheaded all of these crazy deals around the world. Also, they have so many ports around the world because everybody laughs that, if it's made there, that it's pieces of crap, stuff like, oh, well, it's not a big deal. Even if they have a bigger Navy, it was made there, so it's all going to fall apart. That's not right anymore. It hasn't been correct for years. When people think of made in Xi land, right, they think of horrible products or knockoffs or these bad products. As I've explained, and many of you guys already know this, but all these big companies and huge contractors, they ended up bringing not only their technology and their manufacturing technology and everything else over there, but they ended up getting their people to do the labor. So it was like, at first, it was like, have them do the labor, have them build the products. We would buy it for super cheap. But a lot of companies said, hey, there's something over here. A lot of these huge groups like BlackRock, putting huge amounts of money into Xi and saying like, oh, well, we can build the most advanced stuff over here for half the cost. Everybody was looking at their bottom line, but what they were doing is they were improving their manufacturing capability. Everybody wants to build there because the labor is dirt cheap. I mean, they were paying peanuts at one point and got caught. I mean, we're not even kidding. There was times where it was kids getting paid in like peanuts and stuff to make Nike shoes. There was stuff like that happening all over the world, and it's like there's all these things that are going on, and people think that they totally underestimate Xi. Their country now can manufacture high-tech stuff. They have all of the manufacturing ability, and they don't have to cut red tape or go through any bureaucracy. If they want everybody, all of their all of the manufacturing, if they want to switch it in one day to build military stuff, that's what they do. If they say that you're working for nothing today, that's what happens. I mean, they have complete control. That's why people like Trudeau are like, saying, oh, I actually admire Xi because he can get things done like that because he's a dictator. I mean, like, this is just crazy. It's an insane thing that people are still underestimating him. I personally believe they spent billions and billions of dollars on a project quite recently, and they switched around the whole world power here, and they've got people in their pocket all over the place. And then Xi could start building anti-SpaceX missiles to destroy Elon Musk's Starlink project. So just a few days ago, we talked about the satellite images showing that they, in fact, have been testing knocking out Japan air bases with exact replicas of our planes, and the planes that are based in Japan, they actually have the layouts exactly the same as if they were going to practice to knock out Japan's air bases, the ones that we have there. Our bases in Japan. That was on top of course, before that, you saw in the desert, they had these mock-ups of our naval carriers. Our carriers are one of the biggest threats to their military, and they are practicing day and night how to destroy us. And people are still, not seeing the writing on the wall. Now it says that Xi could start building anti-SpaceX missiles to destroy Elon Musk's Starlink project. Personally, I think this is already happening. It says military experts in Xi land have advised Xi military to build anti-satellite capabilities capable of taking out Elon Musk's Starlink satellites should they ever pose a threat to the country. Well, we know that it would because look at what they're looking at. They're looking at Vlad taking over UKR. Elon's satellites, which according to the Roscosmos leader, Rogozin, he essentially said that he threatened Elon. That's why Elon did that tweet a few weeks ago, like, if I die under mysterious circumstances, it was nice knowing you. That was supposedly because of a threat from Rogozin, the Roscosmos, commander or whatever, and saying that his satellites played a huge part in destroying their military. So Xi is looking at this and saying, we need to get, we need to have something that will knock their satellites out of the sky. This is actually also on the tail end of Vlad. They said that they have a laser that can be moved around and possibly, I don't know if they were handheld, but they're small enough and portable, and they're lasers that can supposedly knock satellites blind or blind them all the way up in space. Dex?
Well, Adam, doesn't this bring a little credence to the fact that maybe Starlink is more than just internet? Right? We've said it all along. We've said there's a military aspect here. We said there was a tracking aspect here, as far as measuring, potentially bodies that are coming in towards Earth or potentially high-speed objects flying around on Earth. Right? We've talked about how a lot of that stuff's sort of been revealed here and there, but we haven't really had the truth on it. We've just had a lot of speculation and a lot of little leaks and stuff. But to see these countries take such a strong position against that device, so to speak, right? It absolutely then elevates it to a level of, hey, this is a really credible thing. There must be something more here than just a bunch of packets and information flowing on the internet, right?
Well, and we know that they added hypersonic sensors. So as far as Starlink has certain Starlink satellites that they confirmed will be used to sense hypersonic speed objects, whether that be a meteor or slower meteor or a faster missile. So there's already a military aspect. Elon already has contracts with, of course, boring tunnels under cities with the government. Already has deals with power grids with Tesla's battery technology and making huge buildings the size of, of course, the size of a grocery store, making backup batteries for the grids. We know that Neuralink has some sort of military use, that they're doing some crazy stuff with that. And then, of course, you have SpaceX launching U.S. astronauts and doing government work and launching satellites for the government. He's connected to the government in every way. That's why people are following him, because he has so many connections, not only to the rich and the famous, but to the government and to powerful people. That's why people are looking at every action he does and everything he says and kind of feeding off his every word, because he's an incredibly powerful person. He's also a very, I guess it could be a very scary thing, knowing if he is good or bad or not. If he's a bad guy, we're really screwed. If he is a good guy, then he, of course, would be a big target for places like Xi. So we'll see, though. His second largest company, as far as his manufacturing, goes on in Xi's country. So he's kissed Xi's butt a couple times there, especially even when they celebrated their anniversary. Stuff like that. It's like, whose side are you on? Obviously, he's got to make his money, right? But at what cost? And then Xi's interest in U.S. AG assets could pose security risks, federal report says. Dex, can you go over this real quick?
Yeah, certainly. So their push to achieve basically this self-sufficiency, right? And they've incentivized the nation to purchase or even steal, as we've reported, assets, whether it be military assets or technology or things like that. Well, they're talking specifically around agricultural assets in other countries. So they're saying that this can present a risk to the national security of our country. And that's coming from a new report that came out. So, we've talked a lot about the lands they've bought. We've talked a lot about the investment in agriculture and things like that. So I think what they're honing in on this report is specifically about what they may be doing to gain more control over that, whether it be taking assets or copying them or getting access to, any proprietary things that we have from an agricultural point of view. And, having that there'd be a number of things they could do with it, and they could do it for their own benefit, right? But they could also use it to engineer things that could be to our detriment, right? They could create stuff that could harm our agriculture, but not hurt theirs, right? So there's a lot of ways we have to look and think about this and what this could actually mean from a national security point of view, which is and an economic point of view, which is what I think this commission was sort of looking at. Like, hey, how do we look at what Xi's country is doing and what their goals are, and how that can actually have a negative impact on us, and what does that mean?
And it says, the report essentially says that Xi could gain further leverage over U.S. supply chains by purchasing these agribusinesses and land in the United States, reduce U.S. competitiveness by stealing intellectual property, and create bioweapons using DNA from genetically modified American crops. It says they could, right? Guess what they've already done? Look at what they've already done. They've controlled a ton of the world ports. They've controlled. I would hate to look at what percentage of things in the world are made there, but I do know that a ton of stuff is made there. I look at when all of this CV stuff went down, what ended up coming to the shelves. It ran places like Fry's. If you're local or on the West Coast, there was a computer store called Fry's. It had everything you could imagine as far as computers. It had things that you could do it yourself, build a computer from the ground up, but it had everything. It had toys, it had treadmills, it had just all sorts of stuff. It was like a Costco for electronics, It was a big store. It was a big chain. The one here, it was like right when they stopped flying stuff out and 98% of their flights went down and there was no stuff coming into the cargo. It was absolutely insane. The shelves went empty and they stayed empty. And it was such a crazy time. If you're local here in Washington and went into a Fry's after that happened, it was like a dystopian movie. The employees didn't know that they were actually shutting down. So you ask and everybody's like, we don't know. And I'm like, well, what are you going to do after this? And they're like, well, we hope it just, everything starts coming in again. Nothing started coming in again. And after month, it got to the point where there was these giant aisles and there was like one or two things and it was like a made, as seen on TV thing. And that was all that was left. And it was the only as seen on TV thing that was like made in America right on the badge right there. And it's like everything else was gone. And these employees, I talked to one and he said they slowly just started cutting our hours and they had like 2 people in this giant building the size of a Costco for the entire day. And they were doing everything for me to go and get other stuff that was made here. Like there was a drone part and batteries or something. And essentially it was this one guy and he had to help 15 different people. And he's like, you're 16 in line. I was like, are you kidding me? That was at the very, very end, right before they closed down, and now they're fenced off and they're making it something else. But it was really crazy to think that almost everything on their shelves was from his country. And then you look at the maps of how they have taken over the trade of the world. And by they, I mean the CCP, not the people. The people there are great people. But the government there, absolutely nuts. To know how much is made there is just mind-blowing, and how much of the planet is dependent on them. People need to get ready. This isn't going to be Afghanistan. And then Xi conducts military exercise around Taiwan to warn U.S. Most of us believe that this is something that is kind of inevitable as far as things coming to Taiwan. The military in Taiwan has already handed out pamphlets on how to get to their local shelters and what to do when the conflict starts. And they're not sugarcoating it either. They're telling their people, like, this is very likely. You need to get your stuff ready and start preparing. It says that the CPLA on Wednesday said it has conducted a military exercise around Taiwan as a warning against its collusive activities with the United States 2 days after President JB said Washington would get involved militarily if Xi were to try to take the self-rule island by force. It says the PLA Eastern Theater Command recently organized multiple military services and branches to conduct a joint alert patrol and realistic combat exercises in and above the waters around the island of Taiwan. Again, it says this is a stern warning to the recent collusive activities by the U.S. and Taiwan secessionists. She was quoted in the Xi state media as saying. It also says, Xi accused the U.S. of saying one thing and doing another over the Taiwan question, as well as frequently encouraging Taiwan independence. It says, quote, it is hypocritical and futile and will only lead to the situation to a place where it becomes dangerous, with the U.S. facing serious consequences as well. First of all, this is like we let the world, U.S. has done so much stuff and been the bully this whole time. There's a new bully on the block, and the way that they run their country, you're not going to like it. So you better hope that our bully punches this bully in the face. Hopefully that bully isn't best friends with the other bully, and they're, just plotting on how to really take our lunch money. Either way, it's kind of like pick your destruction. By the way, I always get somebody that probably isn't familiar with their show and saying, "Oh, this is all negative." Unfortunately, we're covering, and again, people tune into us for our opinion. In fact, if people wanted a customized show to basically speak to what they think should be talked about, well, then they would be doing their own show. This is my opinion based on my knowledge and by the people I know, the military I know. We, again, have way over 500 active and retired military in our groups. And we have a ton of people that have, over the years, grown fond of us for some reason. And those people have told us a ton of different stuff. We don't base our opinions on just one article here or there. We actually base it more off of what people are saying about those articles, what the truth of it is, or if there's people in those positions. Example, I'm not going to, if I read an article about truckers, I'm going to try to talk to a trucker that actually has gone through it or something along those matter before I believe some, article from Daily Mail or something. Also, from military, everyone that I have talked to, nearly everyone, I would say there's a few that stick out, believe that we are headed into WW3. And that's not to scare people. You're here for a reason. You're searching this information out. You want to be kept up on this stuff. If not, this might not be the right channel for you, because we talk about very scary things. And unfortunately, this isn't a really good time to sugarcoat things. I'm not doing it to scare people to get views or anything else. We have the same views, the same amount of viewers. The average stays the same almost every single day. It doesn't matter if we talk about angels and dreams or if we talk about military and war. We have a really loyal audience, and I can only say I'm very blessed for having these people that stick around us. But the fact is, most of you know it in your heart too. Even the people that are skeptics know something is wrong and something serious is happening. And it doesn't matter how many times we warn people. People say, "Oh, we warn too much." Guess what? There are still people that are unprepared. There's still people that are not going to see it coming. There's still people that are going to close their ears and close their eyes and say la 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 and not see it coming. I just told a friend of mine, I said, when the lights go out, what are you going to do? Do you have some sort of plan? Because I firmly believe the lights will go out one day and they won't come back on. We are trying to get ready for that. That's why we did partnerships with people like Energy and did partnerships with people like EMP Shield. So I hope people are paying attention. We warned you before CV. We showed you the drills they were doing, and that brings us to a story here in just a second. We're going to talk about a drill that happened last year that we'll give proper credit to the Fugel family member that pointed this out here in just a second. Beforehand, though, speaking of EMP, if you have not already, you can actually go over and get one at $50 off right now. Again, that's our grandfathered in discount. If you want to protect your house, your home, your generators, your cars, your RVs, your boats from an EMP or even a CME, the natural kind, you can go over to marfugelnews.com/EMP. We do this because we really do believe in this company. This company was birthed out of actual preppers that are in our community, that are real people, that in fact, Andrew, one of our good friends who is one of the founders there, he was also a YouTuber and did this whole thing before they blew up in size. When we started with them, they didn't have all these crazy contracts. Now they have worked with the likes of DHS, DOD, and of course now they're on the DEMSO team helping protect the Texas grid. Other agencies and places are doing this kind of protection. We believe that if you are seeing them do it, we should be doing it too. They're doing it quietly. They're not shouting at the top of rooftops saying, we're protecting ourselves against EMP. But that's what's happening. Also, one of the largest threats and the most, as far as the most talked about threat to the U.S. and other countries, including Europe and Australia, is a power grid down situation. So if you want to have a backup plan, like having a generator that's protected, a house that's protected, so you can bug in, or again, you can get solar generators like Energy, or even get a gas-powered generator that's protected by EMP Shield. That way, if you do bug out, you can take that with you or go wherever you're going to go, and you'll have a backup plan. But what this does is it grounds a signal before it's able to fry your device in 500 trillionths of a second. Not a second, not a microsecond, not a macrosecond, 500 trillionths of a second. So make sure to go to marfugelnews.com/EMP. Not only will you get a discount per device, you'll also be supporting a veteran-owned business, 100% American-made product, and our show. Thank you, everybody that has already done so. Anybody that already owns them will tell you how awesome the company is. Again, they're incredibly, incredibly awesome people. All right, and then Dex, before we talk about this crazy drill and everything else that's going on, U.S. aims to leverage Vlad UKR bloc against the Xi nation. It says U.S. officials say that the Xi administration is aiming to lead the international bloc opposed to Vlad's invasion of UKR into a broader coalition to counter what it sees as a more serious long-term threat to global order from Xi. The officials said Secretary of State Anthony Blinken will lay out a three-pillar approach to competing with Beijing in a race to define the 21st century's economic and military balance in a Thursday speech outlining the administration's Xi policy. Now, by the way, I also want to point out, so everybody around the world is talking about this event that happened again here. And again, my condolences go out to the families that were involved in this. In fact, lots of crazy stuff happened. As many of you know, I was dealing with my kids and a lot of stuff. My wife needed to sit in bed for a few days. She was really up and rough. She actually knew about this before I did as far as this event that happened. But I will say this. Look at the other stories that are happening right now, and how many people do you think are watching the 24-hour loop are talking about any of the things we just covered? None of it. And then also remember who controls a huge part of media, who controls a big part of the companies that control all of the media companies, which now are hyper-focused on interviewing parents and everything else that's going on right now. Look at what people are talking about. Look at what people are covering on Twitter. Nobody is covering this stuff. Nobody's covering all the Davos stuff, all of the other stuff. Meanwhile, this is what's happening. Now, there's one reason I could think of, too, that may be a good reason. Think about how Xi and their country actually look at stuff. They wanted Sony to remove the entire, basically the last 30 minutes of the scene in the new Spider-Man movie because it had the Statue of Liberty in it. In fact, they wanted them to remove or edit out or blur out anything patriotic for the U.S. And they were serious. They actually said that. Their country said, hey, can you just get rid of like any picture of the Statue of Liberty? Because it's offensive to them. Freedom is offensive. And luckily, they said no. But they confirmed that was asked. Think about that. If you watch the new Spider-Man movie, you would know about a quarter of the film has that last scene of the Statue of Liberty. How would they do that? I don't know. It would just be them floating around and running around on nothing. Think about who controls the media. Think about who controls everything. And what is everybody focused on right now? That doesn't take away from the horrible events that have happened over the last time. I do want to point out, though, 6 small ones where their lives were taken in I guess they would call it the ghetto or the South End here, and it was gang related here in Washington. Not one news story about it. So it's crazy to me, the ones that they do cover, they don't cover, the ones they point out. This one was particularly bad, but I also try to look at everything that's going on meanwhile while these things are going on. Also, they're using it to obviously, there's different things that they're most definitely pushing for on Twitter and other places. So, but look at how much stuff there is regarding Xi and everything else. And we know for a fact that they try to get rid of anything negative about their country. In fact, there have been big publications. In fact, Dex, can you remember, was it the New York Times? I want to say it was the New York Times or somebody else that one of the hugest newspapers ended up deleting a bunch of these backlogged stories, these kind of op-eds that they did on things like the South China Sea, the Spratly Islands. Why? Because there was huge amounts of money taken from one place and put into another to basically say, like, maybe they should have Spratly Islands. Things like that, right? For public opinion to be outcrying and say, they deserve the Spratly Islands. They deserve that area by our publications. So just think about everything that's happening. Every time you see every single news outlet covering something, make sure to look underneath the covers. A lot of things get pushed under the rug, or if there happens to be a horrific event, that goes to the very top, and a lot of things get done in those next couple days because no news is going to even be able to cover it. They're so stuck on competing with everybody else on this big thing that everybody's talking about. Dex, as far as obviously it's becoming more and more apparent that this is a big threat, but I guess most people don't realize who's trying to take over the world here.
Well, yeah, and we cover it obviously, because we look for all the details that are out there, and especially the things that aren't on the front page, right? And a lot of this stuff just isn't on the front page anymore, and it won't be for various reasons. But I think, as we saw, and I don't want to say predicted because that's probably the wrong word, but we certainly covered and talked about what was going to happen in February with UKR, because we were talking about it back in March before. And I say March like the whole year before when they went in and did their first tests, right? We talked about those things, and then it happens. And it doesn't mean that we're necessarily, we got a crystal ball or anything, but we sort of look for the details that are being covered up or not being surfaced to the top. And what we're seeing now, and the dots we're sort of connecting, are the same thing is happening as it relates to Taiwan, right? There is just a whole lot of information, a whole lot of consternation, a whole lot of conversation being created in the messaging out there, even though it's not front, it's under the covers, but it's there about this. And it just seems like it's ripe to happen at any moment. I don't mean it's going to happen tomorrow, but it certainly, seems like it's on the brink just as much as UKR was when we were talking about it all last year.
So, and again, to reiterate, we talked about all the drills. Most people had no idea that UKR was going to be taken by Vlad. They also did not follow the smaller, less known stories about Vlad moving to the border with 150,000 troops. Now, a lot of the mainstream covered it for a day or two, but we actually covered it for months on all of the different movements, all of the different politics around it. And we said back then, we said they're going to do this. When you look at Xi and how he's postured towards Taiwan, it's going to happen. And we'll look back at this episode and say, hey, we told you before it happened, but it's not like it's everybody knows. I guess my problem is more with people that think it's not going to happen. It's like, are you crazy at this point? Like, they are going to take Taiwan, and it's, if we defend them, we are getting directly involved. Or are we going to defend them in the same way we defended UKR? We're going to send gear to them? That's a smaller island compared to, I guess it's not that small, but I guess my point is they're 100 miles off the shore. They would be able to take that in no time. If they don't take it in 1 day or 2 days, then there's some weird stuff going on. Then that's definitely like, are they going to keep this process going? Once they've bled this out to use up the news and everything else, then they'll start Xi and Taiwan and all that and run that for another year? I don't know. Do all of these weird things and be able to pass laws during it? I don't know. But we're paying attention, and so are a lot of you. Texas Rob 49, much love and prayers to Miss Marf for a full recovery. Hey, thank you, Texas Rob. I appreciate that. Over on D Live, Queen B2P, Tower Bear, I think Z-Man and P-Man are working together. So, again, I think that, well, I guess, so it very well could be everybody's working together. But people think that doesn't mean that we could have a WW3 or that it would all be a show. It's not everything is going to be a Fantastic Freddy. Tower Bear to weaken the U.S. and draw us in. Jam, thank you for modding. I appreciate that. Outlaw Josie Wales. Chance Paladin, thank you for again doing all the stuff and letting people know what was going on over the break there. Kishar, Priscilla R, Mary XX, thank you so much. And the Recalcitrant, thank you. And I Love Jesus Forever, appreciate you. Thank you for gifting, or I'm sorry, for receiving a badge there. Thank you. And then we have Turkey detains IS new leader, officials say. Senior Turkish officials said ISIS new leader, and I say it on purpose like that, has been captured in a recent raid in Istanbul. It says anti-T is police and intelligence agents detained a man they believe led a group since its previous chief was perished in a U.S. operation in February. The official said, asking not to be identified because of the sensitivity of the matter. Turkish news website Oda TV identified the arrested man as Abu Hassan al-Warashi without saying how it obtained the information. Previous reports have given a similar name for the new ISIS leader. Bloomberg News couldn't independently verify the identity of the man detained by Turkish authorities. President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has informed of his capture, the officials said Thursday, and he's expected to announce the arrest in coming days. I just want to remind you that Erdogan, somebody taught me how to say his name the other day, and I forgot already. Tayyip Erdogan. We talked about him the other day. I just want you to think about the kind of things that happen here, the operations that we do, and how we catch people, and it's a big win. I wonder if, I know that other countries do that same kind of stuff too. Maybe they needed a win in their book or something. Catch the bad guy, approval ratings, that, such and such. I don't know. But that sounds like a good thing, right? Is there any bad to this? I don't know. How could there be? Officials said the T leader was captured following lengthy police surveillance of a house where he was staying. Oda TV did not say police didn't open fire during the raid. Said they didn't open fire. And then Turkish forces have clashed with ISIS militants at home and in neighboring over the recent years, ousting the fighters from several towns near Turkey's border. Dex, we've talked about Erdogan before, and there was some weird things that were going on with that in the country. Do you think there's anything connected here?
I mean, he's certainly they're a NATO member, right? They're part of the alliance, and it's someone we would expect to see going against this group, so to speak, right? So for them to come out and say they've got this, that's good. We talked about him last time when he was pushing against. I want to say it was either Finland or Sweden or both. It may have been just Finland's entry into NATO. But I think he was really posturing to get more or get something in return for his yes vote, because it requires everyone in NATO to actually agree for someone to be entered in. So, but yeah, it's interesting. We'll have to see what comes of this. Obviously things aren't fully confirmed yet. It's just coming from their reports, but and their officials. But we'll see.
Now, Dex, somebody said silent. I don't know if they were responding to somebody, and then somebody said, what was it? Stephen McMahon says, is something wrong with my PC? I can't see any sound or picture.
No, we're fine. I'm
okay,
listening
so
to it.
I would say, but Stephen McMahon, if that did happen, always make sure to back out if you're watching on YouTube. Just back out of the video and then go back in. Also, there is one thing I've accidentally done, which is if you go up to the top on my PC, I do it regularly on the show, is I accidentally mute the website. You can right-click on the tab and say if you mute YouTube, it will be muted across the board. So any new tab you open up will be muted. So even though it says your volume's up, your computer volume's up, that site could be muted. And then Ecto 1, Marv tell wife to put warm green tea bag on eye for 10 minutes. So she was overheating it, because, well, I mean, to be honest, she didn't know what it was, and then I told her to put heat on it because I thought with a sty or anything like it that you want it to come out. So there was the first day she put a hot rag on it and was boiling and putting a hot rag on it for like hours. Well, it turns out the doctor said that's a horrible idea. It's like you want to do it for like 5 to 10 minutes or 15 minutes. Like 3 times a day or something. If you do it all the time, it draws out extra stuff and it just draws out everything. And it made her eyelid to where it couldn't even open. She couldn't see. And then it was crazy. We have 2 babies that are still diapers. So, a lot of moms get pink eye and stuff. I changed diapers too. I've never had pink eye or anything like that, but I'm always super hyper careful about changing diapers and touching my eye. But it wasn't that. It was something else. It sounds like something went in, like she got a poke. Something like a foreign object went in there, stabbed her eyelid, and then that eyelid got infected. But then the second doctor said that it wasn't staph or MRSA or anything, that it was conjunctivitis. But it's so bad, her whole eye is blood now. It's really, it's not a pretty sight. And then she's got... I don't have any here. She ordered, at first she ordered this, the eye patch thing off of Amazon, and it came the next day. It was like this big. So then we ordered more off of, it was like an 8-pack off of Amazon, and she seriously looks like a pirate. So kind of funny out of all of the things. But yeah, she couldn't see, and then her other eye hurt to open her other eye because the other eye would open too. It was just bad. So thank you for the prayers. And by the way, the doctor said, if you, the first one at the ER said, you could lose your eye if something's wrong. Like he did a yellow dye, and he didn't tell her. So he's like, you need to get into the doctor. She was up until 6 a.m. at the ER. They put this yellow drops in her eye, and they said that something popped up. So they didn't communicate what it was. They were like, it changed the color. So I'm going to make you an appointment. And he made an appointment for 9 a.m. Our kids had school the next day, everything else. And she's like, well, I can't go home. And then the appointment was an hour away. There was nobody in our area. So it was like she would have to drive an hour, possibly an hour and a half because of traffic to go there. I would have to watch the kids and have it do it and then turn around with no sleep. So that she's like, well, why would he have me do that if it's not super serious? But she ended up, luckily at 8 a.m. we were able to call and reschedule it for like 1. So she got a couple hours of sleep, went, and he said it was that. So it was like just the last couple days and everything has just been absolute hell. So thank you everybody for the prayers. Um, yeah, I'll show you guys pictures. I'll post them on the community tab. It was pretty rancid. I don't know if it will get flagged for graphicness or something. And then we have documents shed light on secret U.S. plans for apocalyptic scenarios. ABC, right? Or all of the above. That's what they're preparing for. Dating back to the 1950s, preparations for nuclear conflict and revised after the September of 2001 events. The presidential directives are not shown to Congress. It says, newly discovered documents have shed a crack of light on secret executive branch plans for apocalyptic scenarios. Like the aftermath of a nuclear attack, when the president may activate wartime powers for national security emergencies. Until now, public knowledge of what government put into classified directives, which invoke emergency and wartime powers granted by Congress or otherwise claimed by president, has been limited to declassified descriptions of those developed in the early Cold Conflict. In that era, they included steps like imposing martial law, rounding up people deemed dangerous, and censoring stories from abroad. Okay, listen to that last part. It has been not been clear that it is in what is in the modern directives known as presidential emergency action documents, because under administration of both parties, none have been made public or shown to Congress. But the newly disclosed documents, which relate to George W. administration's efforts to revise the draft orders after the events of September, offer clues. Several of the files provided to the New York Times by the Brennan Center for Justice show that the Bush-era effort partly focused on a law that permits the prez to take over or shut down communications networks in conflict time. That suggests that the government may have developed or revised such an order in light of the explosive growth in the 1990s of the consumer internet. It says that underscoring how little lawmakers and public can infer, another file from the summer of 2008 mentioned that Justice Department lawyers were revising an unidentified draft order in light of a recent Supreme Court opinion. The memo does not specify the ruling, but the court had just issued landmark decisions on topics that could relate to government actions in an emergency, one about run rights in the United States and another about rights of Guantanamo detainees to court hearings. It says, quote, the bottom line is that these documents leave no doubt that a post-9/11 emergency actions documents have direct and significant implications for American civil liberties, said Elizabeth Golteen of the Brennan Center for Justice. It says, and yet there is no oversight by Congress, and that's unacceptable. What this says is during an emergency, there is no oversight. It would turn into Xi. It would turn into Vlad. It would turn into Cuba. Okay? There's no oversight into what these plans are. Dex, I mean, this is really scary stuff, because if something bad happens, essentially they have all ruling power to do whatever, and the people do not.
Right. And I would, in some regard, you would almost think that this would be, I wouldn't say it's the norm, but it would be expected, right? You would expect that there are some sort of, powers or abilities that they have during these times, right? But to the author's point and to the investigation's point of the documentation that they got, we really don't have any clue. Like why isn't there more transparency? Why don't we at least know? Like it's one thing that they have it, but shouldn't we at least know what it is they have? Because at the end of the day, they're all elected. They're all part of our, they all represent us. It's our country, right? So it doesn't seem to make a lot of sense for this to sort of be hidden, in the secret drawer of the desk somewhere in the White House, right? So that's kind of I think what I look at when I think about this is not that I wouldn't expect them to have it, but it's really like, well, what is it can they really do? And back to the point of having oversight from, say, Congress, which is a much closer representation of of the people, right? You know, there it makes it is a great question that this author asks, and we do on our website we have a link to I think it's the Brennan Center, wherever the reporter got this information from. All of that's there. So if you want to go read and look through some of these, and again, it wasn't like it came out clearly and said this is what was happening. They sort of had to read between the lines and say, okay, well, I could see this document's talking about this other action or this other thing that was happening, and that's how they were able to infer what was going on. So if you want to do some digging, there's plenty there for you to dig. But it's a rather interesting question. It's a rather interesting position that we have with this, this executive power, so to speak, right?
So, and Jen Boyles made a comment saying, are any of you actually surprised by this? I'm not surprised. In fact, we all kind of knew it. But when you get proof like this, where it's out in the public and people know that this exists, it's kind of like, how do people deny that there's an ultimate kind of rule over people, that freedom is just an illusion of the time? If there's any kind of a real emergency event, it's going to crap. And this should wake people up that are totally asleep to the fact that they think, oh, well, the government will just protect us and save us if things go wrong. That is not true. Everybody is going to be basically on their own. You are going to be on your own when this happens. There might be some sort of programs running or operations, but guess what? Most of those are going to be scary as hell. You're going to be in an area with thousands of other people, essentially like cattle. I mean, just think about how would they have to, if there's all these events that start happening all over the country or something, boom, 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 power's out, everything else. It's going to be sheer pandemonium. There are going to be some places that are going to be safe, but those are going to be reserved for the upper echelons of people. And what's really kind of freaky is when you look at what the upper echelons of people are doing. They're building places far away from people. They're building bunkers and silos and all of this other crazy stuff. And it's not to say that it's guaranteed going to happen in our lifetime. But unfortunately, look at the times we're in and then look at what everything lines up to be. People have been following this for years because there's been these signs for years. People in the 80s probably stood there and said, the end is nigh, right? And I'm not saying it's necessarily the end, but it may be an end of an era. Back then, there were signs that all of this was happening, and this is a long-term game. This is down. I mean, you could look back into the 60s and see all of the changes happening now, and people predicted this stuff. People saw the signs and could play chess and think in their brain until checkmate. We're almost at checkmate, folks. So people have to wake up. The documents, as Dex said, are on the website. But we also want to go into a piece here. I believe I loaded the tweet from Fugel Family. It was from Anonymous Western Mass. So if you guys want to go over and follow, make sure to go do so. Again, nti.org. So when...
And Adam, while you load that, if you want to go ahead and click that link, it just loads a PDF. We're going to jump to page 6. It's called Executive Summary section. Just start reading from there. For those of you who don't know what the NTI is, that's the Nuclear Threat Initiative. It's an organization. It's says it's a nonpartisan and a non-profit organization. It was founded by Sam Nunn and Ted Turner. I don't know if you're familiar with who they are, but Sam Nunn was a former U.S. senator, has a big background in politics and lots of other things out of Georgia. And everybody probably knows who Ted Turner is, founder of Turner Networks and other things like CNN, et cetera. So that's the group that did this. So if you want to, I would recommend jumping past the forward or into just that executive summary. It sort of gives us a good overview of what was happening last year with this organization.
And this is... So is it on page 6 or is it the third paragraph?
No, it's page 6 of the PDF. So keep scrolling till it says executive summary. It's after the forward. You're on the forward, I think. Keep going.
Okay, page 8. Just so if you do go to the website, it is on page 8. It said in March 2021, the Nuclear Threat Initiative, NTI, partnered with the Munich Security Conference, which we've talked about before as well, to conduct a tabletop exercise on reducing high-consequence biological threats. Conducted virtually, the exercise examined gaps in national and international biosecurity and pandemic preparedness. It says architectures and explored opportunities to improve capabilities to prevent and respond to high-consequence biological events. Participants included 19 senior leaders and experts from across Africa, the Americas, Asia, and Europe with decades of combined experience in public health. Guess what this was about? It says the exercise scenario portrayed a deadly global thing that involved an unusual strain of, just to put that there, just highlight that for you, of that monkeying around. And it says that emerged in the fictional nation of Brinia and spread globally over 18 months. Ultimately, the exercise scenario revealed that the initial was caused by a T using a pathogen engineered in a lab with inadequate biosafety and biosecurity provisions and weak oversight. By the end of the exercise, the fictional resulted in more than 3 billion cases and 270 million fatalities worldwide. Just to remind you, that was in 2021, using what basically has popped up out of nowhere. And just to point out something here, that kind of matches Deagle's estimate there, but just to point out something, it was emerged in the fictional nation of Brinia, when they're saying all the stuff from, it's calling it from Britain or UK or whatever. But anyways, they said caused by a T attack using something that was engineered in a laboratory with inadequate biosafety and biosecurity provisions. Dex, I don't know if you put this together, but I want to talk about an explosion that happened in one of the 2 labs that has all of the dangerous stuff in the world. So most of you know exactly what I'm going to talk about here. And some of you may not know that this happened. This was
that's funny because I didn't put that one together. I was thinking all the other labs that have been talked about in the other country that's in the news all the time. UK are.
Well, I just kind of put it together right now. So that if you do remember in 2019, before all of this other stuff went, check this out. And by the way, there was talk about when this happened that there was like little to no security there. It says just 2 labs in the world house smallpox, and the one in Russia had an explosion. What in the world is going on here? Oh, okay. I'm sorry, guys. I somehow it took it off of that page. Check this out. This was in September of 2019. Okay, I also want to remind you that was for the 2 labs that contained that, right? They also contained anthrax and all this other crazy stuff. Remember that date, okay? September 17, 2019. And then let's go to DuckDuckGo again. Trust me, there's a good point to this, and most of you guys, I've already pointed this out to. Let's see here. 1, 2. Dang you, darn you. Spent $2 billion on now remember the small version of this was eradicated in 1981. Let's see here. Saving what the heck? Oh, Yeah. Oh, no. And this is so funny. This is something different that just popped up. And by the way, Dex, can you find me the article that I'm talking about with the $2 billion? We just had it on the show the other day. What's funny is there's another article that popped up that says HHS says recent U.S. Not related to this current. And what they're referencing is that huge $2 billion order that went in on something that was eradicated. It says a biotech company that develops announced that the U.S. had exercised options under an existing contract to order $119 million worth of a freeze-dried version of the J-Eneos V, which can help prevent it and the monkey business disease in adults. The order converts existing into freeze-dried versions. And Dex, you have it in Screener?
Yeah, it's in there. The 2 billion. I think you actually had it on the screen. You just didn't see it, but I gave you a better version with no ads.
You sure? Oh, there it is. There it is. So check this out. Okay, people need to put 2 and 2 together here to figure out what we're seeing. Should be like 1 + 1, but you know. If you can count to 4, I know all of you can. We may have some new people that only count to 3, but they'll get there. Okay? Can you give me... I guess I can view the original. We need the date, and it doesn't show the date on on the 3rd. Okay? This was 2 weeks before that explosion. And it just happens to be awarded for this, and then one of 2 labs in the whole entire world. Just, it's a weird coincidence. You guys know what I'm talking about. So again, I guess my point here is there's a lot of different things coming from a lot of different angles. People should always just have a responsibility of, like, I guess, keeping track of the possibilities that are out there and knowing, what is possible, what is possible reality compared to what is, possible fiction. Dex, thank you for loading that up for me. So, by the way, Def 14 Labs, Debbie from Ohio, thank you. It is 12:34. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes. By the way, thank you to Alexander Potrats for the super thanks on the last video, Emerging Issues. It says, I've worked for the lumber industry for 10 years. Starting last year, a switch happened. Everything was made and grown in the U.S. and Canada. Now we're only getting wood from Chile, Brazil, Greece, UK, Latvia, Austria, etc. Weird. Mighty Mouse and others replied, that's very odd indeed. Huh. And then Doodle3, thank you for your comment and your super thanks on Emerging Issues. On Endgame, Emerging Issues. And then on Rolling Blackout, They Are Coming, Beautiful You says, thank you all for what you do. Thanks, Adam, Dex, and Mods. I appreciate that. And then Billy Leather, thank you for the super thanks. It's nice to see you. I know that you haven't made it to the live shows, but I appreciate seeing you in the super thanks. Kelvar, thanks. And then Kelly2334. And then T. Billings said, I can't make the live, so it's awesome I can support through super thanks. I appreciate your show, Dex, Marv, and Mods. Thank you all. Thank you, T. Billings. I appreciate that as well. All right, and then just to remind you, if you do not want to be tracked or traced, and if you want to protect your devices against certain things like EMP, if you have smaller devices like cell phones, laptops, computers, and of course your key fobs and things like this, if you want to protect them against EMP or just protect them from anything as far as signals going in and out, this would be the way to do it. Go to marfugelnews.com/offgrid. Of course, they have backpacks. They also have a Faraday duffel bag that essentially you could throw a ton of electronics in, and the entire innard is protected against not only EMP, but again, against any kind of prying digital eyes. These were originally made for agencies like FBI to be evidence bags. So if they put, say, a cartel member's bag in evidence, it couldn't be hacked remotely or activated. They would put it in this, and it would be sealed off, and they knew that no signals would go in or out. They also make a windowed bag, which not a lot of people talk about, but that windowed bag is really awesome because you can, still access your photos or your contacts or anything else. And a lot of people save things online when they use that bag. So then they can read the news or whatever they have saved on their phone, or even watch movies. It is still in that signal-free bag, so nothing is going in and out. Nowadays, there's something called the geo warrant, or geostationary warrant, or essentially where the geofence warrant. And that's something that a few people have actually won against, but they were wrongfully accused because they were in an area where, say, in one example, a murder happened, and they were arrested because the police went through and took a geofence warrant and found that this person was at this 7-Eleven at that time, and they were able to arrest them for a murder they did not commit. And what was it? Well, within 5 minutes of the event, they were there buying some, Gatorade or something. But that's the kind of thing that will happen much more in the future, so you can set yourself to be ahead. Also, in general, this is also a good protection against any kind of hacking, which now there are tons of different cyber crimes that are happening every day. Walking down the street, somebody could hack into your phone, get your passwords, do all sorts of things. All right, and this works hand in hand with all of the other stuff: EMP Shield, Energy, solar generators, NordVPN. It's kind of a theme as far as what we think is the most useful things. These are absolutely amazing, high quality, and they'll last for an incredible long time. Dex, go ahead.
Hey, I think I told you last time, I mentioned that I threw all my comms in my duffel bag so that all of my radios, everything is protected. It just sits there. The thing I did recently is I started getting battery packs, those, that you can charge things from, and I'll throw the battery packs in there as well, so I can keep things charged in the bag and have batteries that are available. So it's a great, that bag is super useful.
Well, thank you, Dex. Do you want to go over the web-only content? And again, thank you, Simply Pony. Omar Fugel is back. Nana of Montana, may God bless everyone. Stay safe and alert. Good night. Thank you, Adam, Dex, and Mods. David McGee, I also thank you, says, the government looks at us like cattle for the slaughter. We are nothing but dust for them to shake off their boots. I would say more so the elites that are above the gov, but I agree in some parts of that. Stephen McMahon, prayers for your wife, Adam. I do agree that they don't care about us. That's for dang sure. They mostly care about looking good to us. But Jeremy the Jester Late Night, thanks for subscribing. And anybody that ends up subscribing during the live show, of course, you will get a shout out. Thank you. And I really appreciate you being here. And if you're new here, make sure to talk to the Fugel family members and ask them, again, what they think of the show. And I appreciate everybody that, of course, answers those questions for newbies. All right, Dex, let's go over the web-only content. We have some crazy stuff here.
Absolutely. So go to marfugelnews.com, click on the thumbnail for the show, and scroll down to web-only content, or open the description on YouTube and click on show notes. It'll take you right here. It's so easy to get to. We put all this together. Every time we do a big live show, we have the rest of the story, if you want to call it that. It's everything else we either can't cover, it's too hot for TV, too opinionated, a lot of political content, stuff like that goes in here where it's just something we can't cover here. Obviously, that really hot topic, and it's a very sad event that has happened, that is in here. A lot of information we've added here. We'll probably continue to update things here as well. There's a lot of questions that are now being asked. It's obviously things are different, what the day of versus the day after, versus as more light gets shed on the event, you can start to see more things or basically create more questions. And I think a lot of those questions are starting to come out as far as like, why did this happen, or why did this take so long, or who did this or didn't do this, or what was going on. So a lot of that's covered there. So make sure you go check it out. Plenty of other things happening. You can find out, from famous people like Whoopi, what's going on? You've got other stuff from our current administration, who always tends to have something happening. Some interesting Elon tweets, some things he's put out there. And he even had a recent one that just came out about a poll. So you might want to go check that out too, about who you trust least. I'll try to add that as well before the show's over. And then the last thing I'll end it with is, apparently now that Winnie the Pooh is in the public domain, we now have our first Winnie the Pooh horror flick. So if you're not familiar with Blood and Honey, that is a new film, and you can go learn about it on our website. So head over to marfugelnews.com and click on the thumbnail for the show and scroll down to web-only content.
Lots of crazy stuff there. And thank you, everybody that goes over there and checks it out. There's a lot of, again, a lot of stuff over there, whole new show there. So make sure to go over. Love you guys and appreciate you. We will be back tomorrow. We will see you for tomorrow's show. And then make sure to always tune in to Marfugel News. There's going to be many videos coming out there soon. So make sure to subscribe over there as well. Marfugel News is the main channel. This is the sister channel and live show. The short edited or sometimes short live videos are all over on Marfugel News. All right, thank you guys. Much love. Thank you everyone that popped in tonight. Thank you over on DLive for everyone, including Texas Rob, Tower Bear, the Outlaw Josie, Gem, of course. Thank you. And then again, Texas Rob, thank you for gifting out badges. Priscilla R, Kishar, and everyone else. Over on YouTube, thank you, everybody. I found Waldo, J Stone, When Pigs Fly, Jerry, and everybody else. It is now time for the shoutro. It's not an outro. It's not a shout out. It's a shoutro. Have a good night, guys. Be safe, be prepared, and Marf out. What lives always ends with a knee. Which do you pick, A, B, or C? What lives always ends with a knee. Which do you pick, A, B, or C? go.